Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. Cheat on your wife with mine? I will burn your life to the ground. Way back in the early 2000s, I began to suspect that my wife was up to something. Our two kids were about 4 and 6, still young, but not so young they couldn't tell you something about what had happened in their day. They started talking a lot about staying with my wife's parents during the day, which wasn't really that strange in and of itself. But since they lived about 90 minutes away, doing so 2 or 3 times a week seemed a bit much. That was basically every day she wasn't working at her part-time job. When I asked her about it, she denied it, but was never a good liar. So I started tracking the mileage on her car, and sure enough, she was driving an extra 400 or so miles per week. I knew some shit was going on. Then one day I sat down at the computer, and she had left a sticky note with her AOL password written on it next to the keyboard. I could not resist and logged in to read her emails, and saw a few email exchanges between her and her college BFF, where they discussed how my wife was regularly fucking one of her ex-boyfriends from high school. No mention of details about him other than my wife also talking shit about his wife, making fun of how she'd gotten fat after having kids. Anyway, I printed out these email exchanges and stashed them. I still needed to know the details. So I called a friend who was a cop, and he suggested I call a guy he knew that had left the force to become a PI. Ron was great. I paid his retainer and gave him the emails and what little I knew about my wife's activities, and he figured out exactly what she was doing. His report detailed with photos and times, dates, locations, all about how she would take the kids to her parents, then go meet this guy for lunch, then they'd go to a dumpy motel for a few hours, after which she'd pick up the kids and return home. At this point, I hired a divorce lawyer. My parents cheated on each other, and the fallout absolutely fucked mine and my siblings' childhood. It was something that was totally unacceptable. I also asked Ron to find out what he could about this guy. Ron absolutely came through. I learned his name Bob, that he was married and had 3 kids. I also found out that he worked as a VP of sales for his father-in-law's business. At this point, I had my lawyer draw up the divorce papers. I also asked Ron for a couple more copies of his report, and one more thing I wanted him to do for me. On the same day, I had my wife served with the divorce papers at her work. I had Ron meet with this guy's wife and show her everything he'd found out. She seemed nice, and I figured that she deserved to know what her dear hubby was up to. What she did with that information was up to her, while the information about my wife's infidelity didn't really matter in my divorce proceedings. Bob's wife did a real number on him. According to the publicly available court documents from the divorce and other related proceedings, she cleaned out their joint account, took the kids, and left. As soon as her dad found out what he'd done, Bob was fired. And since her parents actually owned the house where Bob and his wife lived, he also got evicted. Their divorce was ugly. Lots of fighting in and evidently out of court. I guess Bob went to the house and started arguing with his wife, and it escalated to the point her brother stepped in, and Bob got his nose broken. There were restraining orders, a few more incidents with police reports, criminal charges, jail time, and so on. I can't find Bob on the internet anywhere these days. Last I heard, he'd left the state and his ex-wife did okay. She went to work at her dad's company and took over after he retired. As for me, my ex and I got along well enough. I didn't engage with her on anything that wasn't related to the kids, and now that they're both adults, I don't talk to her at all anymore. I don't hate her or anything, but I only care in the context that she is my kids' mom and is important to them. Nothing beyond that. The text message lit up his phone just as the last light of day faded behind the horizon, casting long shadows in the quiet of his empty home. I'll never forget what you did, Bob. You think this is over? Think again. Alex stared at the screen, each syllable a dagger twisting in his gut. Was it too late for the haunting memories or too soon for revenge? He could almost taste it. Way back in the early 2000s, a decade when trust felt like a warm blanket, the first whispers of betrayal began to drift into Alex's mind, an insidious wind carrying the scent of deceit. The children were innocently oblivious, ages 4 and 6, depicting a picture-perfect family that hadn't existed for months. Back then, he noticed how Melissa, his wife, would take them to her parents more often than usual, 3 times a week, sometimes 4, and always under the guise of helping out. But he wasn't born yesterday. Those family visits stretched miles too far, an unnecessary detour etched in the cosmic ledger of trust they had built together. As he crossed his arms over his chest, it felt like a fragile shield bracing against an impending storm. Finally confronting her one evening, he sat opposite Melissa at their worn kitchen table, the remnants of dinner still lingering in the air. Her eyes darted to the side, avoiding his piercing gaze, and he sensed the feeble flutter of her defense. "Are you seeing someone?" Her laughter, a little too forced, a little too loud, resonated like a warning bell in his head. "Don't be silly, Alex. You know my heart is with you and the kids." The denial tasted bittersweet but lacked any conviction, and just as he suspected, her ability to lie like a true manipulator was non-existent. Discontent brewed beneath his skin, consuming him with sleepless nights, each tick of the clock ringing louder with whispered suspicions. He took a pen and began tracking her mileage, a meticulous countdown to revelation. The numbers dripped like poison as he documented every trip. 400 extra miles each week became a tattoo of guilt. Sitting down before the computer one evening, Alex's breath quickened when he discovered a sticky note flickering with forbidden knowledge. Her AOL password, that curious key, beckoned him into a dark corner painted with tears and betrayal. As he clicked through her inbox, dread unfurled. Email exchanges that sang of infidelity, laughter circling the name Bob. Every keystroke felt like he was peeling away layers of his heart to confront the rawness of rejection. Melissa's words dripped with a cold sweetness that taunted him. Laughing at the torment she tucked away behind her domestic facade. "Can you believe that fat cow?" He read one line, then another, where she shared secrets about meetings with Bob, her childhood acquaintance who had drifted back into her life like a bad memory, except this time they were entwined in a tangled web of lies. Printing those emails became an act of ritualistic self-preservation, holding the damning evidence in his hand like a lifeline amidst a sinking ship. The betrayal carved deeper into his psyche, and he was left with a choice: to walk away quietly or unleash hell. Calling a friend who wore a badge, Alex sought perspective, but the hint of calm he craved was drowned by the biased truth. He was seething now, so he summoned Ron, a pie that had retired from the force but not from sleuthing the shadows of affection gone awry. Each whispered word to Ron dripped with venom, igniting the fire of revenge. The report that later appeared was like a cold shower on a January morning, stark, harsh, and utterly revealing. The photographs captured moments he wished to obliterate, his wife's laughter interlaced with Bob's shadow sliding into the depths of unholy connection. Each image told the story of secret rendezvous, a lunch with friends that bled into a dark motel room adorned with empty promises. Alex was trembling as he concluded their illicit game, disappearing into the recesses of a brutal reality. This was no family reunion. This was an affair dressed in betrayal's finest garments. As Alex scoured the report, he meticulously planned his next move, while the stench of despair clung to the air like a heavy fog. It was time to wield the sword hidden deep within his heart, the blade fashioned from emotional anguish and betrayal. You didn't cheat on your spouse and expect to escape unscathed. Divorce papers lay cold and heavy in his hands. He pondered the chain reaction impending once he dropped a stone into the calm waters of complacency. Both Melissa and Bob had to pay for their betrayal, a notion born of desperation and the instinctive urge for justice. It wasn't just his heart shredded apart. He could hear the cries of their children, oblivious to the shattered dreams surrounding them. Knowing the pieces that would come crashing down, he picked up his phone and initiated a carefully orchestrated plan that would bleed Bob dry. The same day he had Melissa served at her office, her demure facade overshadowed by the suddenly fracturing reality, he called Ron one last time. Encapsulated in darkness, a chill raced through Alex as he envisioned Bob's wife, a stranger in the arena of betrayal, left blind and exposed. Meet with her. Share everything you have, Ron. She deserves to know. Truth is a dirty sword, but it has the capacity to cut deeply. Let this ride its course. The call ended, and in the ensuing silence, Alex looked out the window toward the sprawling suburban cul-de-sac he had spent years nurturing, a place that now felt like a haunting shrine to their failed commitment. In the days following, he received word of Bob's unraveling, a series of poorly executed decisions punctuated by accusations and outright confrontation began as the truth streaked through their unholy union. His ex-wife's betrayal mirrored the sharp betrayal he felt, a two-edged sword slicing through the tangled web that bound them together. The ink on the court documents spilled out horror, echoing in the halls of all they had taken for granted. Bob had been broken by the weight of his own lies, stripped of familial ties, and forced into a reality he never anticipated. From afar, Alex reveled in the chaos that erupted around Bob. The facade they had built collapsed, his world crumbling around him like so many shattered dreams, for now revenge had become a beautiful, intoxicating specter, leading him through the dark in vivid technicolor. Days passed, echoing with the chaos of ruined lives, while his own meandered forward with a bittersweet quietude. Melissa's children were the only light that still flickered gently in his heart, and he did not allow himself to drown in the darkness of revenge too deeply. They were innocent, but he still could not ignore the churning satisfaction of knowing how the future would unfold. She remained around, the ghost of a shipwrecked love wandering the corridors of his mind. But every time he looked at their children, the power of revenge gave him the strength to float above the tide. Alex didn't look for Melissa's apologies or regrets. The web she had woven with Bob, coupled with the ungraspable consequences they both would face, ignited something dark within him. It brewed heavier and hotter each day, marching him inevitably closer to a reckoning he could taste on the tip of his tongue. As each day passed, he knew he had a choice: to wallow in heartbreak, or to wield that heartbreak as a weapon. And as the shadows grew long and their laughter echoed in the hallways of his heart, he realized that the pieces of the plan were falling into place. With the stage set, Alex steeled himself, preparing for the storm of pyres to ignite. Revenge was not just personal. It was a force that resonated with the very bones of his being. He would not rest until each betrayal was accounted for, until he felt the echo of consequences resound in the quiet chambers of his heart once more. The days continued to pass, marked by the ticking heartbeat of revenge growing tighter within Alex's chest. Each morning greeted him with the prospect of anticipation, a raw energy crackling like a live wire. He stopped engaging with Melissa. Their conversations faded into a symphony of silence, punctuated by the clanging reminder of their crumbling relationship. The children, once the tether that bound them, now remained the only arbiters of hope in a battlefield of fury and heartbreak. By the end of each long day, the recollections of what once was drifted too close to a bittersweet nostalgia. He forced those recollections into hidden corners of his mind, burying them under the weight of his newfound resolve, the resolve of a man who had felt the sting of betrayal and was ready to unleash hell upon those who had caused him such pain. The previous month had transformed into an executive plan, each move anticipated and orchestrated like a conductor leading a meticulous symphony towards an exultant crescendo. With Ron's help, Alex had planted the seeds of chaos in Bob's once peaceful world, and now it was time for the final act. He initiated another meeting with Ron, their unspoken alliance a stark contrast to the loyalty Melissa once championed. "Everything's in motion," Ron remarked, his eyes gleaming with a mix of excitement and respect for the meticulous planning they undertook. "Bob's already been served with divorce papers. His wife's accusations won't hold water. He's really made a mess of things." Alex nodded, heart racing with feverish delight. The taste of each word resonated in him, sweet as honey and bitter as betrayal itself. "What about the plan?" he queried, a predator swathing himself in the thrill of the hunt. "The timeline is set. I hear Melissa's already worried about her image, fearful of the fallout that'll hit when the truth comes crashing down." "Perfect," Alex replied, the corner of his mouth curving into a sinister smile. "Let's make her regret every choice she's ever made. She wanted to ruin my life? Well, it's time for her to wear that shame like a crown." With their plans laid bare over dirty takeout cartons, the stage was almost set. Alex smiled slightly at the thought of Melissa, now facing the fallout of her choices. Her retribution bathed in the same warmth of betrayal she had extended to him, but now twisted and darkened with consequence. As they finalized the details, each detail profound and methodical, Alex's heart raced with anticipation. Moments later, with only blurry shadows reflecting their urgency, he pulled himself up from the dark booth, ready to embrace the next phase of his plan. Within a week, he executed part 2. His former mother-in-law. She was a woman of influence, a matriarch who had unknowingly spun away precious time, while her daughter unraveled her family. A phone call to the school reinforced their bond, as Alex shared the grim details surrounding Bob's infidelity and the lies still woven into their stories. "This is a serious issue," he urged, voice trembling with a mix of anticipation and dread. "Your daughter's choices could threaten everything, her family, her dignity. We owe it to the children to find a resolution." Each word dripped with a deliberate pacing, an allure that led to the invisible curtain lifting between them. The mother-in-law, a woman of resolve, agreed to meet, a part of Alex's carefully poised gambit now falling into place. Days later, he watched with satisfaction as the unsuspecting family gathered at a local park, laughter spilling through the tree branches as the children played beneath the watchful eyes of their oblivious parents. He approached the Alex. "What is it?" she asked, her voice strained with confusion, a quick glance over her shoulder spotting Melissa, her daughter, who walked with Bob on the far end of the playground. "Can we speak? Alone?" He gestured towards the nearby benches, a worried guise masking his determination. After a moment of hesitation, she followed, eyes questioning and alert. They took their seats on the cold metal benches, and from there, Alex unleashed the torrent of truths he had collected. "Melissa's been unfaithful, and you deserve to know. It's only fitting you understand the truths connected to your family." The blaring reality hit her, a sharp intake of breath echoing through the air between them. "You have a right to be angry, to respond. I had plans once that now lay shattered too. It's why I wanted to bring this to you." Margaret's face blanched, understanding the shadows that lurked within Melissa. "What do you mean? Who would she even have an affair with?" "Her high school boyfriend, Bob. He's back in town and has been in and out of their lives." With every break in her facade, Alex felt the chains of honesty crack and splinter between them, and he pressed on with fury creeping into his voice. "I took her family for granted, and now look where we are. I have the proof." As he revealed the details, Margaret's expression shifted, pain dolloped in anguish, as the sting of truth settled like venom into her spirit. Over the next few days, chaos unfolded in ways Alex had yearned to witness. Melissa's image began to erode, the lies she had championed crumbling under scrutiny. Phone calls magnified into accusations hurled from both sides, leading her to gulp down despair like water. The divorce spiraled into a messy frenzy, with revelations flooding out like pulsing arteries into the light every vein of betrayal, revealing how deeply rotten their fairy tale had become. The unraveling consumed Melissa's soul, her once glittering reputation left tarnished. Alex delighted in the consequence cascading through their lives, igniting more anger and heartache with every touch, almost dizzying him with pride. Then came the moment he had been waiting for, the opportunity to confront her. They met at yet another local cafe, a battleground of echoes where their past mingled ever so bitterly. In a dimly lit corner, when their eyes finally met, dread coursed through her. "Alex, I know things aren't good right now, but let's talk about the kids," she began, tentative as she edged forward. But he silenced her with a dismissive wave. "No, we need to address you and your betrayal first," he intoned coldly, his voice low and steady. "You thought you could unearth pain and not face the consequences? You're gravely mistaken. You're gravely mistaken." "Please," her voice trembled. Mask of indignation swept away, leaving only fear in its wake. "I don't want to drag this through the mud. The kids are... the kids," he cut her off, the disgust spilling from his tone. "What about them?" "You care about their future now, after what you've done. Those were mistakes, Alex," her voice raised defensively, yet the awareness of culpability seeped through like shadows. "You can't just throw everything away like this. You knew what I'd been through. It's all about closure for you, isn't it? Yet here we sit, and you haven't felt a fraction of the pain you threw me into. You've lost everything, and I want the world to know how low you've fallen." As realization settled in, the air grew heavy, grotesquely intoxicating. She wore her heartache, anger skimming over the surface of her perfect demeanor like rain over a tarnished exterior. "You think this is over? Think again." He leaned forward, his face just inches from hers, ice frosted in the air around them. You don't understand how executed art this is. I'll burn your life to the ground, he hissed. Her face dropped. The mask of entitlement shattered under the weight of raw truth. You don't mean that, she gasped, her broken bravado crumbling under the monumental pressure of reality. Oh, but I do, he retorted, standing tall as the weight of their shared history pressed heavy against the walls of that cafe. Enjoy the flames, Melissa. You are the spark in this twisted tapestry we call life. With that, he turned on his heel, ready to embrace the freedom that stretched before him, every bitter memory replaced by new beginnings. His revenge consummated through this bitter success he had meticulously planned. And now Melissa yielded everything she had taken for granted. Outside, shadows spilled into the late dusk, thick and heavy, where the weight of their shared past turned to ash. He stepped into the freedom of possibility, his heart beating to the rhythm of closure, as her chaotic screams faded into the night behind him. The children were unaware, but Alex knew he had painted their future with the shades of his decisions. As he walked away from the cafe, he felt the world around him morph, and he welcomed every conflagration ignited by the truth, unrelenting and cruelly satisfying. In the distance, a final voice echoed before disappearing into the void. You'll regret this, Alex. But he only smiled, a cold stone resolving to strike hard against those who had betrayed him once again. And as the last traces of daylight dimmed behind him, he finally understood that revenge, though dark, had painted a satisfied smile on his face. His life had once again found new dusk, now punctuated only with sweet, unyielding vengeance, as he walked steadfastly into the night, leaving darkness in his wake. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like.